All right, in this lecture, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this painting up of this eye. So the first thing I wanna do is I wanna touch up some of these colors and kind of blend them in a little bit more. So for example, down here underneath the eye, that's sort of an orangish red color, and I don't really like that. It's gonna make the person look like they're kind of sick. So I wanna turn that into more of a brown color. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and select my eyedropper tool, and I'm gonna go ahead and select this brown up here, or something like that. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and just paint that underneath the eye there, just like that. And then I can go ahead and select this color over here, this lighter version of it that's mixed with the skin tone underneath, and use that to just kind of paint that shadow back in. Then I'll go ahead and take my eyedropper tool and I'll select this lighter color that blended on top of it, and I'll paint in with that. Just something like that. Then I'll select the color between these two colors, so right there. Paint in with that a little bit. All right, great. That's looking more like what I want it to look like. I'm also gonna go ahead and I'll select this color right here, and I just wanna paint in a little bit more of a neutral skin tone on this part of the eyelid. And maybe I'll make that a little bit brighter. So up here in my color picker, I'll go ahead and bring that up brighter. Something like that. Then I'll use my color picker and I'm going to select this orangish peach color, and I'm going to kind of reshape this eyelid edge and also kind of get rid of this brown color that our original drawing was made out of. We don't really want to see our original drawing anymore. Then I'll go ahead and I'll select this color in the eye, this dark gray. And using my brush, I'll go ahead and paint over the brown drawing that we have there. And you may have to do this a few times. So using my eyedropper, I'll select this color here because it's slightly darker than the color up here. And then I'll go ahead and just paint over the brown drawing. Do it once more. So I'll select this color here. Use that to help blend it in. And we just want to continue to do this all the way down the eye. I'm going to reselect the skin tone and just paint over this brown drawing a little bit more on the skin side of it. I'll do the same thing down here. Oops. And then I want to blend this in a little bit more, so I'll select some of that brown there. Just kind of help blend this out. Like that. All right, great. Next, let's go ahead and let's reshape this iris a little bit. So selecting this color in the eye there, I'll go ahead and just kind of clean up the edge of that just a tiny bit. We don't have to make it look perfect, but we just want to clean up some of the mess that the drawing left behind. So over here, for example, we want to paint over where this line exceeded the actual circumference of the iris. And again, you want to make sure that you're using your color picker and sampling a color from that area, because right here it's gray and up here it's white. So you want to make sure that you're using that color picker to sample that area and paint it in. All right, great. Next, what I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to add a little bit more color to the skin tone because it's starting to go a little bit flat. So I'm going to go ahead and select this reddish color over here, and then we can just go ahead and start painting in some of that on this upper part of the eyelid. I'm not pushing too hard. I don't want it to be too extreme. I just want to get some of this nice red color in here. I do the same thing over here around the tear duct. We can add a little bit of color onto the eyelid as well. All right, great. Another thing we can do is we can add a little bit of yellow into the skin tone because skin has a lot of different colors in it. So if we select our yellow that we have right here, we can just very lightly paint a little bit of that in. So we can add a little bit, whoops, too big. Just bring the brush size down to about that size. We can add a little bit of yellow up there, maybe a little bit of yellow there. Just small, tiny bits of yellow. You don't want to add too much, otherwise it might make the person look sick. Something like that will be good. Now, I'm also going to go ahead and use my eyedropper tool to select this color right here at the top of the eyelid, which should be a brighter highlight. And I want to make that just a little bit brighter. So I'm going to, over here in my color picker area, I'm going to bring that up just a little bit brighter. And then I can go ahead and paint in some sort of a highlight up there, something like that, just to make it look more exaggerated. I can go ahead and add a little bit of more of a highlight right here on the tear duct as well. And right here on this eyelid edge, it's looking a little bit too orange for me. So what I want to do is I just want to go ahead and select, let's say, this color right here is about the same. So let's select somewhere on our image where we have sort of this orange color, but it's not as extreme. And then let's go ahead and paint over that. And we don't have to push super hard. We can still let some of that orange come through. All right, great. Now I want to add a little bit more shadow in here as well. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and take my eyedropper tool. I'll select some of this brown from the crease of the eyelid, and then we can just very slowly layer in some more shadow here on the bottom side of the brow. We could even add a little bit more blue in here as well. So let's select some of this blue. I'm just going to add little bits of blue here and there. I'm going to go ahead and select, let's grab this red right here and bring our brush size way down. And we can add a few little wrinkles in here. Don't push too hard, just keep them nice and light. Something like that. And then we can go ahead and take our smudge tool and let's kind of smudge those out a little bit. We can go ahead and smudge some of this color together that we just laid down. Smudge some of this yellow back in there, this highlight. All right, great. Next, let's go ahead and let's start working on the eye. So the first thing we want to do is we want to darken in this pupil and add some darker detail in there. So let's go ahead and select this color right here. It almost looks like a black, but it's actually just a dark brown. You can see over here in our color picker, it's not actually full black. It's not to the bottom. And we'll go ahead and we're going to just paint in the iris. Let's bring that size up. Just try to make it as perfect a circle as possible. But if it's not perfect, that's all right, because the iris is actually not a perfect circle. It's a little bit more organic than that. All right, great. Next, let's go ahead and use the same color and let's go ahead and just add a light layer of shading across the top of the eye like this. And we can maybe even bring that down a little bit further like that, like that. All right, great. And let's go ahead and add that to this part of the eye as well. We want to go ahead and darken this in because it's going to be in shadow, so we're going to be getting quite a dark color on the iris up here at the top. Something like that. And we can go ahead and blend that out a little bit more if we were to select a color like here, for example. We can go ahead and paint some of that in. Go ahead and do the same thing over here. All right, great. Let's go ahead and just keep using our eyedropper tool to select colors within here. And what we want to do is we want to just start drawing in the direction that I'm showing you right here. And we're just going to start basically painting in the idea of some muscles in the iris, because the iris is just a bunch of muscles. that open and close the pupil. So we want to paint that in. So I'm selecting light colors and dark colors. And by layering these over and over again, it's going to turn out and look really good. So let's go ahead and select some more of that. I'll select some of this orangish brown up here by the actual pupil. Paint some of that in. Select some of this down here. I'm going to go ahead and reselect our original yellow just to brighten this up a little bit more and add a little bit of that back in there. If we wanted to, we could even take some blue or something like that, maybe add a little bit of blue in there just for interest. Maybe we can even make that more blue. So if you want, you can go ahead and select a different blue. So I'm going to drag it to about there. And we can just get something that's like pretty saturated like that. And just add a little bit of extra detail in there, just to make that eye look a little bit more interesting. Maybe I'll bring my brush size down a little bit. And then I'll use my eyedropper tool, maybe select some of that rusty brown, paint that back in there. Select this yellow and paint over the blue a little bit more so it doesn't stand out so much. Just something like that. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's not spend too much time there. We just want to get the idea of that detail in there. Next, what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and select the color that's nearest to my pupil. So whatever color you have there, even if it's not the exact same as mine, go ahead and select that. And what we want to do is we want to take that color and we want to brighten it. So over here in our color picker tray, we just want to bring that up and make it lighter. So something like that will probably work well. And then with a small brush tip, let's just go ahead and paint in a highlight on this rim of the pupil, because the pupil is just a hole that gets open and closed by the iris, and so it has a ledge on it. And so if we can paint in a highlight on this side, because if our light source is coming from that direction, that means that it's going to be hitting this ledge of the pupil. So we want to make sure that we paint that in there. We could actually make that a little bit brighter and maybe bring that to a little bit more of a warm color. So over here, I'm just dragging that up to more of an orangish yellow color. Let's just go ahead and add some of that in. And you can see it makes it look a lot more three-dimensional. It's not just a black circle, it's an actual hole. All right, great. Next, let's go ahead and work on the tear duct. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my eyedropper tool, select the color, one of the colors in my tear duct, and I'm just gonna brighten that up a little bit. So I'm gonna drag it upwards and a little bit over towards the white area. Bring my brush size up a little bit, and we just wanna paint in a little bit of detail like this. Just kind of like three little balls like that. Then we can drag that up a little bit higher, make our brush size a little bit smaller, and add another layer of highlight in there. And then I'm going to drag that up just a little bit higher and just use one little highlight just to make this look a little bit more wet. Something like that. And that might be looking a little bit weird, so I'm going to go ahead and select some of this darker color that we have in there and just kind of shade over some of this. And then maybe reselect that with my color select tool and paint that in nice and opaque. Like that. All right, great. Now let's go ahead and start working on the reflections in the eye. So this is where it gets really fun. So let's go ahead and add a new layer. So down here in Photoshop, you can add a new layer. Whatever software you're working in, just make sure you're adding the layer above your eye painting. And on this new layer, we're gonna start adding in the reflection. So the first thing we wanna do is let's go ahead and let's select this blue color. We're gonna start with blue. I like to make my reflections blue because it just looks a little bit more interesting. And what we wanna do is we want to actually change our brush. So we're gonna come over here into our brushes. And what I wanna switch it to is something with a soft edge. So soft, round, pressure, opacity, something like that will work. Anything with a soft edge will really work for this. And then I'm gonna go ahead and bring my brush size up. And then just barely painting in, I'm just gonna lightly paint in a little bit of a blue haze right there. So it might have been hard for you to see that. I'll do it on the other side now so you can see. It's just a very light blue haze. I did it right there, and I did it right there. So maybe just a little tiny bit more, just something like that. So even though you can barely see it, I'm gonna turn that layer off, but you can see that when I turn that layer off and on, you can barely see that blue haze. But that's what we want. It's going to help our eye look a little bit more reflective and realistic. Next, let's go ahead and taking the same blue color, and I'm going to switch back to my original brush, the hard round pressure opacity brush. Just meaning when I push harder, it's going to be opaque, and when I push softer, it's going to be transparent. And I'm going to start painting in my first set of reflections. So there's usually different reflections in the eye depending on how many light sources there are. So I'm going to add a few light sources, and these light sources are going to be slightly different colors. So I'm going to start by painting in just something like this at the top, and then maybe something on the other side, but it'll be a little bit less opaque. Maybe I can brighten that up a little bit on this side. Just something like that. All right, great. Then I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my eraser, and we want to bring the size of our eraser down, and we want to match the same brush. So we want to make sure that over here we're using a hard round pressure opacity brush. Bring the size down, because what we're gonna do here is we're gonna erase out, and this is why you need this on a separate layer. So you can see I'm turning that off and on. That's all its own layer, and the reason for this is because when I erase, you can see that the painting of the eye beneath comes through. And what we want to do is we basically want to erase out the shape of eyelashes, because up here above there's going to be eyelashes on the top eyelid, and they're going to be basically kind of casting a shadow on the reflection in a way. It'll be the reflection of the eyelashes, but it'll be the lack of light there. So we want to make sure that we're painting in those eyelashes into the reflection. This will make a little bit more sense once you can see the actual eyelashes once we paint them. So just something like that, some lines just like that, keeping it nice and simple. All right, next, let's go ahead and let's paint in the main highlight. So let's say in this case, the light source is coming from up here. So let's go ahead and select this white over here. And then using my brush tool, I'm gonna go ahead and just start by painting in a light highlight. And then just using my brush, I'm gonna go ahead and start painting in a highlight like this. So just sort of a circle shape like that with some soft edges. I'm gonna go ahead and bring my brush size down, and I'm gonna go ahead and paint something in over here as well. This will be a little bit more transparent like that. And then I'll paint something in that's a little bit more rectangular right here. And like I said, all these reflections are just light sources in the environment. So that might be a circular light, that's maybe the reflection of a window or something like that, who knows. Just something like that. Go ahead and add a little bit more white onto that reflection. And we can even take our erase tool, and since we're using the pressure, opacity, sensitivity, I can go ahead and just lightly push on this and erase this out a little bit, just to make this reflection right here a little bit more transparent. Maybe I can add a little bit right here on this reflection as well. I don't like that as much, so I'll undo that. But let's keep that a little bit less or a little bit more transparent, like we just erased it out. Let's have a look at this. It's always important to make sure you zoom out when you're painting stuff just to see how it's looking. The main thing that I'm noticing is we could use a little bit darker shadows underneath here and underneath here. So what I'll do is I'm going to go ahead and take my color picker. I'm going to select this darker color right here, and then using my brush tool, I'll go ahead and just kind of paint some of that in underneath there, just very lightly and simple. Then I can go ahead and use that color picker to select one of these lighter versions of that color that mixed in. I can just kind of blend that out. And then up here, I'll do the same thing. So I'll select a color. So let's say that color, for example, and I'll just paint that in. That way I can get a little bit more of an opaque color. And then I'll go ahead and I'll select a lighter version of that. So maybe right here where it kind of got mixed with the color underneath it, paint some of that in. Then I'll go ahead and color pick that and blend that in just a little bit more. All right, so I think that's looking pretty good now. Let's go ahead and add in our eyelashes. So I'm gonna go ahead and select the same color I used for my pupil. We want these to be very dark. So selecting this dark brown color. And then we want to bring our brush size down pretty small because we want these eyelashes to be thin. So maybe even smaller than that. Something maybe a little bit larger. All right, something about that size looks good. And what we want to do is we just want to start painting these eyelashes. So they're going to kind of come down like this. And they'll come back out like that. So down and then back out. We just want to keep these really simple and really loose. We're going for more of a painterly look with this painting, so we don't want to actually add too much detail in there. We want to keep it kind of almost blurry in a way. I'm going to go ahead and bring this line over a little bit darker, like that. And I'm going to go ahead and actually select this brown right here, this lighter brown. And I'll paint some of them in with that lighter brown, and then we'll go back in and darken some of that back in. But this is just to help kind of break it up a little bit. Let's actually bring these eyelashes down a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and switch back to my darker brown now and continue to paint in these eyelashes. And if you go onto the upper part of the eyelid, that's okay. We can go ahead and paint that out in a second. All right, great. Now let's go ahead and let's paint the bottom eyelashes. So I'm going to bring the size of my paintbrush down quite a bit. Let's go ahead and we can even zoom in there. And I'm just going to start painting in these tiny little eyelashes like this. Bottom eyelashes they tend to be more spread out and smaller. So I want to make sure that we paint them like that. All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and zoom out, see how this all looks. It's looking pretty good. One of the last things I want to do is I want to go ahead and I want to add some brighter highlights in some areas. So the areas where I want it to look wet or where certain different planes meet each other, sometimes you want to add sort of a brighter highlight. So I'm going to go ahead, zoom in there. I'm going to go ahead and use my color select tool or my eye picker, and I'm going to go ahead and select that color right there on the bottom edge of the eyelid. And then I want to go ahead and make that brighter. You want these highlights to be a lot brighter so they really pop out. Then using my brush tool, I'm just going to go in there and paint the edge of this eyelid. And that's going to help it just look a little bit more of its own form, a different plane. And not only that, but it'll make it look a little bit wet. I want to make sure that I avoid where the eyelashes are. I don't want to paint over those. And maybe I'll get a little bit of a brighter color and add in just a few spots of that brighter color in there. I can do the same thing here on the eye. So if I go ahead and I color pick this color, let's say right here, let's go ahead and brighten that up a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and paint in just a bright edge right here where the eyelid and the white of the eye meet. And that just kind of helps it look a little bit more wet and makes it pop a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and select this color over here on this part of the eyelid, brighten that up a little bit. I'll go ahead and paint a little bit of a highlight over here on this edge as well. Zoom out and see how that looks. All right, pretty good. All right, I think this eye is looking basically done. So This should give you a pretty good taste of what it's like to digitally paint. Now, this might have been a little complicated for you, and that's okay. If you couldn't follow along exactly, or you're still trying to learn some of the stuff in your software, don't worry. We're gonna be learning all the different concepts of digital painting throughout this course, and this eye should be a lot more easy for you to paint later in the course. So once you take this course, what I want you to do is I want you to come back to these lectures and I want you to repaint this eye and see how far you've come. I want you to compare your skills from the beginning of the course to your skills at the end of the course. Now, with this painting of the eye that you just did, I would love it if you'd go ahead and share this in the Q&A section of the course. And if you have any questions, make sure that you post them there as well. Thanks for watching this lecture, and we can't wait to see you in the next ones.